My name is Robert, and I go by Rebel88A. And you're listening to Environmental Soup through the facilities of Trent Radio. Or if you're watching live, you might be watching this on Twitch. Um, and today I will talk about um, Bill 23, which is the housing bill that the government of Ontario has in the legislature. It's in second reading. And this is a postal of an event coming up. I wasn't able to update my title on the screen. So if you here to talk about the world population, um, I this is a different topic today. And then if you join, uh, you're welcome to uh, suggest topics. And then I usually, uh, lately, I've been streaming on Tuesday nights. So I'll get into it. I'm just looking up the proper title of the bill. It's called the More Homes Built Faster Act. It changes several pieces of legislation and takes away powers of conservation authorities as well. So, and as well as uh, taking away third party appeals, um, green standards, site control, um, and encourages urban sprawl, etc. I'll also be talking about the green belt, my thoughts on international law as well. So there's a rally coming up. This is a postal for the event on Saturday, November 26th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Lansdowne Street at Polk Street. And it's protesting Bill 23, um, along with other events throughout the province of Ontario. There's also a housing event rally at 1 o'clock on the same day, and I believe that these two issues are related. If you can go to both, that would be good. Um, I'll see if I can find the housing one. Housing Raleigh, Peterborough. Um, anyways, I know it's at 1 o'clock, and and then I know that like if the environment, if a home floods, that leads to property damage, displacement of people, that'll house a lot of people live in basements. So people already precariously housed could be at greater risk of due to flooding if we allow uh, houses to be built on wetlands or get rid of powers of conservation authorities in partnership with municipalities. That is a risk as well. So there is a Facebook page. It says, "Join us in the rally in solidarity against Bill 23 to educate the public about the most recent obscenity from the Ford government. We will meet at the intersection of Lansdowne Street and Polk Street on November 26th at 10 a.m. We will stand march around the Spitty intersection and perhaps down Lansdowne as well. We will draw the attention of drivers and passers-by using large signs and chants. There are several side streets and areas to park around this intersection, and carpooling can be arranged as needed." This heinous bill is being pushed through at record speed and will cause severe harm to our wetlands, watersheds, forest, wildlife, including many species at risk, and our communities. Bill 23 will not solve the housing crisis, though it claims it will, dismantling planned progress and cutting development charges, as well as giving the ultimate power to the premier and ministers, means that we will not be able to build sustainable communities or increase affordable housing where is needed. Bill 23 also threatens our democracy and our rights to participate in community development through changes to land tribunals and giving more powers to the minister and premier as stated above. The bill also completely disregards the duty to consult and violates Indigenous rights and title. This is under the Canadian Constitution that there's a requirement to consult with Indigenous nations. Bill 23 will result in catastrophic destruction to our natural heritage and will create sprawling, isolated communities, exacerbating the intertwined climate and housing crisis. So that's from the Facebook page about this event. And if I can find the housing one before the end of this episode, I will update. I'll show that as well because I think housing. Oh, here it is. There's. I'm looking for the postal. Oh, it's Homelessness Crisis Rally, 1 p.m., November 26th, Confederation Park, 499 George Street, Peterborough. So that's the second rally happening the same day. Yeah, those issues that are like related to changes to what is affordable and not affordable. So I have I'm just loading up what I said in my when I was at a rally. International. Okay. So I'm just going to set that up. And I have notes for it so you can follow along.
So, Bill 23 underlines international agreements, such as the ATRI agreement, and
that might be a little bit too loud. I want to change.
Bill 23 underlines international agreements, such as the ATRI agreement and the Paris Climate Accord, which Canada has committed to. And it's important to recognize that with the protected lands being removed from the Greenbelt and a lot of wetlands, that the ATRI Accord is at risk in Ontario. And Ian pointed out that in the next province oval in Montreal, that governments from around the world are coming to Canada. So this bill is bad for international relations. And Peterborough, North Geelong community members fought hard to protect a lot of wetlands at Trent University, Purple Park, and other wetlands across this region. Yes. And right now, with the changes made in the policies and the bill, those wetlands that we fought to protect are now at risk. So it is time to mobilize. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So that was a recording of what I said at a rally. The previous rally at the Ministry of Natural Resources. There were over 100 people there, possibly 150, all ages. I do think that there was an international element that's not being talked about as much. Definitely climate change, because transportation and buildings, like transportation accounts for a third of greenhouse gases, and buildings account for about a third of greenhouse gases. And those land use changes as well. So it's, and if you build further out from where people live, and eliminate all the forests and wetlands that it takes to build these homes, there was an issue. So there's that. Um, so there's also a bunch of groups got together and wrote a letter about concerns that they had related to Bill 23. And it's about 9 pages. So maybe I can get through this. So it's called The Problems with Bill 23 and the Proposal to Remove Lands from the Greenbelt. It says in late October and early November, the Ontario government announced two dramatic and fundamental changes to how we design and build our neighborhoods and communities and protect the environment in Ontario. Bill 23 and related regulatory and policy changes and proposals to remove 7,400 acres of precarious farmland and natural areas from the protected greenbelt. Um, and then it's saying that Doug Ford, the premier, is wrong about needing the changes would result in houses being built more quickly, and it would not solve the affordability and supply crisis. Notably, the housing affordability task force indicated this as well. Um, and then the document says if implemented, the changes would do little or nothing to address the shortage of truly affordable housing, facilitate expensive open sprawl and inappropriate high rises at the expense of more diverse housing types designed for all stages of life and ranges of incomes. Devote limited construction materials and labor away from building mixed and affordable housing and direct them instead towards sprawl development, creating fragmented agricultural and natural landscapes. Fragmentation is a huge issue for a lot of species because species might depend on certain habitats and they travel um, long distances, and if there's a lot of fragmentation of the habitat, there's less habitat, and um, well, because of the edge effect, um, as well, as well as the road, and there's a risk of um, wildlife dying once they attempt to cross the street. Um, this is like highlighted with turtles, raccoons, porcupine, especially. I've seen them on the highways. Um, and then it said it would remove greenbelt thousands of acres of valuable natural areas in agricultural land and turn them into sprawl development, undermine the protection of wetlands, woodlands, rivers, streams, and wildlife habitat across Ontario. And that's why I was saying that the biological uh, convention of the Convention on Biological Diversity was at risk. The ASHI targets land that's already protected is wetlands that have already received provincially significant status can be reviewed again, and they're not looking. They got rid of complexing, so a lot of wetlands will lose their protection. It will destroy key land use planning processes that Ontario municipalities, conservation authorities, and residents need in order to protect, manage, and plan for climate resilient ecosystems and communities, create an ecological vulnerable Swiss trees greenbelt by allowing land speculators to develop the lands that the government would have removed from the greenbelt protection. There was chaos to land use planning in Ontario. Um, and then there was a bunch of signatures. And then they have analysis of the bill. And this section is called Top Line Conclusions. Oh, and I should say that Autonomy Conservation Authority is part of a group, um, Eastern Ontario regional conservation authorities that have weighed in as well. I don't know if I'll have time to talk about that. But yeah, the last time I covered Bill 23, the Greenbelt wasn't covered. So there was a story in the Norwal and the Toronto Star. It was a collaboration between the two newspapers. It's called Six Developers Bought Greenbelt Land After Ford Came to Power. Now they stand to profit. And then I'll look for highlights. Of the 15 areas later to be removed from the Greenbelt, 8 include properties purchased in the 4 years since the election of Doug Ford, who in 2018 was recorded telling a private audience he would open a big chunk of protected area should he become premier. And then the other properties have been held for years or decades. And then there's a lot of donations to the Conservative Party and lobbying records. And then there's questions about timing and a quote from Phil Fortin of Environmental Defense. Nobody would pay this amount of money for land if they didn't think it was going to be open for development. Yeah, and then there's a map in the article. And it shows properties purchased after Doug Ford's election versus before. And I know that the Greenbelt isn't in Peterborough, Nodawong, but it is close by. Oh, who's Weiss? Oh. And then they look at. Oh. I think they looked at each individual property. Oh, there was an unsolicited comment from the Home Builders Association and the building industry, as well as the Land Development Association. And they said, we are in the midst of a housing crisis in the Greater Toronto Area. When the Greenbelt was created, its boundaries encompassed not just environmentally sensitive lands, but also farmland and land that had previously been designated for growth for housing and employment spaces. And it goes on to say, sensationalizing this matter by focusing on anything other than the outcome, the building of more homes to meet increasing demand due to population growth, will be disservice to readers and residents. I think that it is important to highlight the environmental destruction and the lack of affordable housing that this bill will result in. And I I was there was a debate in the provincial election where where they talked about um, the concern about uh, people wanting the environment over housing. Um, so I was in that debate as a candidate. Um, and I can pull up like a clip of that debate. Um, and then there was like a map of like donors to connections to the Conservative Party and the building industry, individual developers. And yeah, so this is like a long article, and yeah, and then since there's a couple minutes left, I'll look at some of the upcoming items that you can comment on in the environmental registry related to Bill 23. Um, as I only have like a half hour show. So when I'm recording this on Tuesday, Friday is the 25th, so I'll look at only dates after the 25th. So you can comment on um, proposed natural hazards regulatory changes, and that has the date of December 30th. Proposed inclusionary zoning regulatory changes December 9th. Proposed changes to Ontario Regulation 299/19 additional residential units December 9th. Proposed supporting growth and housing in the York Dome regions. That would have been November 24th. Proposed amendments to the Greenbelt Plan December 4th. Proposed amendments to the Greenbelt Area Boundary Regulation December 4th. Proposed redesignation of land under the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan December 4th. And then proposed Ontario Land Tribunal Act changes November 25th. Proposed Ontario Underground Infrastructural Notification System Act changes November 25th. Proposed New Home Construction Licensing Act regulatory changes November 9th. Proposed Building Code regulatory changes December 9th. And then those policy changes as well. Provincial policy statement and a place to grow review proposal December 30th. Proposed revocation of the Parkway Belt West Plan December 30th. Proposed revocation of the Central. Oh, yeah, that would pass. Conserving Ontario's natural heritage uh, December 30th. Potential measures to support rent to own December 9th. And yeah, thank you for listening. If you're listening to the radio, and I will see you next week. Yeah, so there's currently 0 people watching. So I can look up continue reading, looking at these items. I'm just going to see if there's anything about wetlands in particular. Okay, so there's concern about this bill would reduce regulatory areas around wetlands and watercourses, exempt certain activities from the need for a permit, and allow developers to appeal the failure to issue a permit within 90 days to the Interior Land Tribunal, all of which further reduce the ability of CAs to fulfill their mandate. So that's I think that will increase the Ontario Land Tribunal. I want a policy proposal announced with this bill would fundamentally overhaul Ontario's wetland evaluation system to disallow complexing of wetlands. This would significantly reduce the number and extent of wetlands that would be deemed to be provincially significant and thus off limits to development. Wetlands often occur in groupings of small interconnected wetlands, which individually would likely not qualify as provincially significant. The proposal would also eliminate endangered species criteria, drastically diminishing the likelihood that a wetland would be found to be provincially significant and consequently protected from development. So yeah, I agree with this. It's going to be more difficult for wetlands to be protected. There is a benefit to having small wetlands for algae blooms, and this was a study in the University of Waterloo. There was a policy for offsetting of wetlands, woodlands, and other natural features. Developers would be allowed to destroy features if they recreate a wetland or woodland elsewhere or pay a fee. Such approaches have been proven to fail in other jurisdictions where they have attempted and ignore the fact that wetlands typically occur where they do because of connections to groundwater regime. In addition, replacing the 100-year-old woodland with the newly planted trees will not replicate the ecological rules of the existing wetland. Okay, so yeah, I did all the wetlands. There's green. Yeah, well, I guess like the no, I'm not sure if I spelled it right, but I guess like there was also the concern about the Archie targets as well, Archie biodiversity targets. And there needs to be 17% of protected area. The green belt is one of those protected areas, so and you're not really increasing protection. That when you're subtracting land and 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 giving land that people were not going to build houses on anyways, it's kind of suspect. Well, anyways, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will continue looking at what's happening in terms of the environment and especially this issue. And I will see you next week or soon.